My beloved child, there are paths that can only be walked in silence, not because you are weak, but because the truth you carry is too weighty to be explained to those who have never intended to understand. There are moments when I allow you to stand between light and shadow at the same time, so that the very contrast reveals who you truly are. You did not choose the slander, nor did you invite hostile eyes. Yet I permitted them to arise so you could learn something very deep. True identity is not born from human approval, but from the unbreakable bond between you and me. When others attempt to distort your image, I am strengthening your inner foundation. When they speak falsely about you, I am teaching you to stand firm in truth without needing to shout in self-defense. There are things that can only be established when you do not argue, for truth does not need to defend itself, and light does not need to shout to prove that it is shining. You once believed that righteousness would always bring immediate justice. But my child, the spiritual life does not move to the shallow rhythm of the world. There are moments when your integrity is not honored, but tested. There are times when your faithfulness is not understood, but questioned. I know this hurts you, not because your reputation is wounded, but because your heart longs to be rightly seen. Yet, understand this: when I allow you to be misunderstood, it is not a sign that I have turned away, but proof that I am leading you beyond dependence on human opinion, like Joseph of old, sold by his own brothers, falsely accused in Potiphar's house. Forgotten in prison, his path was never off course, even when others called him guilty. Each slander did not bury him, it pushed him closer to the position I had appointed. So too with you, you are not delayed by false words, you are being set in the right place. Even when outwardly it appears you are being pushed back. My child, there is a great difference between being offended and being defeated. The world confuses the two, but I do not. You may be attacked, but you are not stripped. You may be diminished in the eyes of others, but you are not lowered in my purpose. When you choose silence instead of retaliation, you are not losing. You are entering a level of maturity that very few ever reach. That silence is not empty, it is full of power, because within it is complete trust that I see. I know, and I act. There are battles that, if you enter them, would only shrink you to stand level with those who do not know whom they are truly fighting. But when you remain still in me, I will stand up, and then every lie will collapse under the weight of time and light. Do not be surprised when those who smile at you carry envy in their hearts. Light always makes darkness uncomfortable, not because light attacks, but because it exposes. You do not need to dim your brightness to make others comfortable. The light you carry is not yours, so you have no authority to dull it. When people try to extinguish you with words, they are not truly aiming at you. They are resisting what I am doing through you, and I will never allow what belongs to me to be extinguished. They may not understand why you remain standing after repeated blows. They may be confused by your peace in the midst of chaos. Yet that very peace is the clearest evidence that you do not walk alone. I know you have often wondered whether you were wrong to keep loving, to keep being kind, to keep trusting after being hurt so many times. My child, you are not wrong. You are simply living according to the identity I placed within you. The world may call this naive. I call it strength that has been refined. Not everyone can keep a soft heart after being wounded. Not everyone can continue to give without becoming hardened. You do this not because you do not feel pain, but because you allow me to heal you each time you are hurt. That very capacity distinguishes you from those who choose to close themselves off after every scar. You were not created to live in constant defense. You were created to live in trust. Hear this. Clearly, false words have no authority to define you. They are only temporary noise surrounding an eternal truth, and that truth is that you belong to me. What belongs to me cannot be stolen by public opinion, nor twisted by jealousy. When I look at you, I do not see you through the lens of accusations. I look directly at your heart, where I have planted integrity, faithfulness, and a desire to live well. You do not need to prove this. Your life will speak at the right time. As David was once pursued by King Saul, viewed as a threat, accused without cause, yet he did not lift his hand against the one seeking his life. He allowed me to do what only I can do, reverse the situation without damaging the soul of the chosen one. If today you find yourself standing at the intersection of pain and hope, know that this is where I most often work deeply. You are not abandoned in misunderstanding. You are being held within a process whose outcome far exceeds your present emotions. Do not rush for everything to be clarified immediately. Some truths need time to grow strong enough, clear enough, undeniable enough. While you wait, your task is not to correct the world's mouth, but to keep your heart from being poisoned. Remain gentle. Continue walking with your back straight and your eyes lifted toward me. The rest, I will take care of, my beloved child. I want you to understand a secret that very few in the world ever learn. Some victories do not come from speaking correctly, but from standing in the right place. Standing in the right place means standing in me, in truth, in peace, in a posture that does not need to prove itself. The world believes that whoever speaks louder wins. Whoever strikes back faster gains advantage. Whoever retaliates more sharply preserves honor. But true honor does not reside in your voice. True honor rests in my presence upon your life. That is why, when a false accusation arises, when a distorted story spreads, I do not hurry you into debate, not because I want you to suffer loss, but because I want your soul kept clean. Arguments may save an image, but they easily tear a heart. And I am not concerned only with the surface, I am concerned with the deepest place within you. My child, there are moments when you want to explain yourself to make people understand that you did not do what they accuse you of, that your intentions were not as dark as they imagine, that you truly tried to live with kindness. But let me ask you this, if they genuinely wanted to understand, would they need you to say so much? And if they have already chosen to misunderstand, would your explanations truly have the power to change their hearts? You could speak once, then 10 times, then 100 times, and still stubbornness would find a way to twist your words, bend your meaning, and pull you into a maze until you are exhausted. I do not want you to slowly die in that maze. I want you to keep a straight path. Your straight path is integrity. Your straight path is love that is not provoked. Your straight path is steadiness that does not require an audience. That is why I teach you the art of silence, not as an escape, but as a way of placing yourself under heaven's protection. Remember this, your silence does not mean you agree with injustice. Your silence is a declaration that you do not need to use the same weapons they use in order to survive. Your silence is a choice not to hand over control of your inner life to voices outside of you. Your silence is your way of saying, I know to whom I belong, and when you belong to me, you do not have to compete for validation by being loud. You do not have to demand justice by attacking. You do not have to buy respect by tearing others down. You do not step into battle to win. You stand in me to be kept. And what I keep, no power can steal. My child, there is a very subtle kind of darkness. It does not arrive as a violent storm, but as whispers, as doubt, as quiet shame. It tells you that you are hated because you are wrong, opposed because you are unworthy, attacked because you are not good enough. But I tell you, do not believe it. You are not attacked because you lack light, but because you carry light. You are not slandered because you are truly evil, but because your integrity exposes what is twisted in the hearts of others. Darkness deeply resents what it cannot control, and if it cannot control you through temptation, it will try to shake you through public opinion. So do not allow the noise outside to become the voice inside. You do not live by what others say about you. You live by what I have called you. I know there are moments when injustice feels like a cold blade, when they speak falsely and are believed, while you live honestly and are doubted. But my beloved child, there are courts you do not see, and judgments that do not belong to the crowd. I am the righteous judge, and I never err. For a time, lies may seem heavy because many voices repeat them, but lies are not strong because they are true. They are loud because they fear truth. Do not forget this: truth does not need a majority to be truth. It only needs light, and the light belongs to me. When the time comes, a single ray is enough to collapse an entire structure of deception built on jealousy and manipulation. Look back and remember the times I rescued you from situations that seemed impossible to escape. When you were weak, I was strong. When you had no words left, I made a way. When you were surrounded, I placed you in safety. I am not a God who appears only when things are easy. I am the God who steps in at the moment of greatest confusion, so that you know the glory belongs to me, not to your strength. There are doors I have opened for you without you knocking, opened because I willed it. And there are doors I have closed that you once thought were losses, closed because I was protecting you. People see only the surface, so they say you failed. They say you were rejected. They say you deserve to be brought low. But I see the whole picture. And sometimes what you call being pushed out is me pulling you away from a place unworthy of the future I am preparing. My child, I am doing something deeper than clearing your name. I am cleansing your ears from dependence on praise. I am cleansing your heart from the need to be understood by everyone. I am cleansing your reactions from the habit of trying to reclaim control. For you are being led into a season where elevation does not come from defending yourself, but from remaining still in me. The more mature you become, the more you will recognize that some words are not worth answering, some misunderstandings are not worth explaining, and some conversations are not worth entering, not because you despise others, but because you honor your peace. Peace is the language of my kingdom, and anything that demands you trade peace in order to prove yourself does not come from me. Learn to discern this: there is silence born of fear, and there is silence born of strength. Fear makes you mute and shrink back, but strength allows you to be still without losing your posture. You do not need to turn yourself into stone to survive. You only need to stand like a tree with deep roots. The wind may shake you, but the roots hold. Words may strike you, but the truth in me holds you. I want you to be rooted. A rooted person does not fear seasons. A rooted person does not panic when the skies change. A rooted person does not chase every wave of public opinion. A rooted person drinks from the source, and your source is me. If there is one thing you must do on days when false accusations are pressed against you, it is this: keep your heart clean and your speech gentle. If you need to speak, speak little and speak softly, like one who knows they are not alone. If you do not need to speak, let your silence become a declaration: I am waiting for me to act, and I will act. I will bring the truth out of hiding. I will cause those who fabricate stories to contradict themselves. I will strip the masks from those who pretend. I will awaken those who believed rumors too quickly. And when that happens, you will not need to display victory. You will only need to have kept your heart free from bitterness, so that when a new door opens, you enter with clean hands and clear eyes. I am teaching you how to live as one who is protected. The protected do not rush. The protected do not panic. The protected do not fight every noise. The protected know that a greater arm stands behind them. I am that arm. And if I have placed my hand upon you, no word can remove what I have secured. No accusation can erase what I have written. No humiliation can make you small when I have determined to lift you. So breathe slowly. Keep your heart soft. Keep your eyes fixed on me. And let me do my part. My beloved, I know your natural instinct is to want everything resolved quickly, to want the pain to settle, the misunderstandings cleared immediately. But true refinement does not happen in haste. It happens in depth. It happens when you remain long enough for the fire not only to burn the surface, but to purify all the way to the root whatever still carries mixture within you. You are in such a season now not because I desire to hurt you, but because I desire to set you free. My child, there are things that, if they are never tested, you would carry for a lifetime without realizing it. There are very subtle tendencies within you, the need to be vindicated, the longing to be acknowledged, the desire for others to truly understand you. These things are not evil, but if they are allowed to lead you, they will bind you. That is why I permit circumstances to touch precisely those sensitive places, so you may clearly see what must be laid down. Not all pain comes from others. Some pain comes from the act of releasing what you once held tightly. And I am there, never leaving you for a moment as you learn how to let go. Look back at the moments when you were offended and did not retaliate. In those moments, you did not grow weaker. You were being formed. Every time you chose not to react according to old instincts, you allowed me to write new reflexes within you, the reflex of peace, the reflex of trust, the reflex of one who knows they are covered. The world believes strength lies in silencing others. I know true strength lies in refusing to let their noise steal your direction. When you do not allow anger to lead you, you step out of a cycle in which many remain trapped for their entire lives. Do not think your silence goes unnoticed. Every time you restrain a sharp word, every time you choose softness instead of hardness, every time you pray instead of counterattacking, I see it all. Nothing disappears into emptiness. In my kingdom, the greatest victories often have no audience. Yet those victories shape the kind of person I can trust, one I can place into deeper, wider, and more influential spaces. I am not building you for a moment of applause. I am building you for a long journey of faithfulness. My beloved child, you have wondered why I did not remove you from this uncomfortable situation sooner. Hear me clearly. If I had done so, you might have felt lighter for a moment, but not necessarily free. I do not only want you to escape the storm, I want you to become someone who no longer fears storms. I want you to learn how to stand when false words swirl around you, when suspicious eyes are fixed upon you, when loneliness knocks at your door. For what lies ahead is not a single test. You are being prepared for seasons where your influence will be greater, your light clearer, and therefore opposition more subtle. I cannot bring you there if you have not yet learned to keep your heart at peace here. Remember the image of gold in the fire. Fire does not destroy gold, it only removes what is not gold. If you were never placed in the fire, you would not know what is pure and what must be removed. Slander, betrayal, hostile glances, they are like fire. They cannot change your nature, but they reveal what still clings. And little by little, as you choose to trust me instead of defending yourself, choose humility instead of proving yourself, choose love instead of closing your heart, you are becoming lighter, purer, freer. My child, there is a very deep truth I want you to engrave within you. True glory does not come from never being brought low. It comes from refusing to let being brought low distort who you are. You remain yourself even when misunderstood. You still carry light even when spoken against. You still belong to me even when others turn away. That consistency, remaining unchanged in essence under pressure, is what I call maturity. The world shifts with the wind. You are called to stand like a pillar, not rigid, but steadfast, not arrogant, but not easily bent. You may not yet see the outcome of this process. You may still wonder when the truth will be made clear, when your heart will stop aching at the memory of injustice. But my beloved, healing does not always come by erasing memory. Often it comes when memory no longer controls your emotions. One day, you will remember these things without trembling, not because you have forgotten, but because you have grown. And in that growth, you will realize that the season you thought wounded you the most was the season in which I was working the deepest. I am not rushing you, and I am not delaying. I do all things at the right time. What is happening is not punishment, it is preparation, not rejection, but refinement, not a sign that you are on the wrong path, but evidence that you are going deeper. And when you emerge from this season, you will not only step out with your reputation restored, you will step out with a widened heart, a purified vision, and a strength that has been refined. You will no longer need to prove who you are. Your life will speak for itself, not through noise, but through presence. Remain a little longer in this process. Do not rush to close what I am still opening. Do not rush to defend yourself while I am still healing you. Do not rush to conclusions while I am still writing. You are not stuck. You are being formed. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. And when I complete what I have begun, you will look back and understand that not a single tear was wasted. Not a single insult was unnecessary. Not a single lonely night was meaningless. All of it has contributed to the person you are becoming, one who can carry light without arrogance, power without harm, truth without shouting. My child, there is a quiet question that has followed you for a long time. Where does my value truly lie? It is not that you have never been recognized, nor that you have never been praised. But the farther you go, the more you realize that human affirmation is as fragile as morning mist. Today they celebrate you. Tomorrow they forget you. Today they call you light. Tomorrow they doubt the very thing they once praised. And in that instability, I begin to invite you into another definition, a definition that does not come from human mouths, but from my gaze. For true honor is not built on applause, but on the hidden companionship between you and me, my beloved child. You have grown accustomed to living in a world where value is often measured by reactions, by glances, by praise, by approval. Even when you are not deliberately seeking these things, such measures quietly seep into your thinking. But my child, as I lead you deeper, I must dismantle those standards not to leave you empty, but to set you free. A life dependent on external validation will always be restless, because such validation constantly shifts. I do not want you to live in a defensive posture, always watching what others think of you. I want you to live from the center, the place where you are certain that you are known, loved, and called by me. Reputation before me is not formed in moments when you shine before a crowd, but in the hours when you stand firm unseen. It is shaped when you choose what is right without applause, when you keep your heart clean, though compromise would be easier, when you remain faithful to what I have entrusted to you even while the outcome is still unclear. The world does not see these choices, it only sees the surface. But I see to the root. And I tell you this, what no one sees is building the foundation for what one day cannot be shaken. I know there are times when you feel misjudged, assigned motives you never carried, understood in ways completely opposite to your heart. That pain cuts deeply, because you do not live a double life. Yet I want you to understand this: being misunderstood does not lessen your value in my eyes. Often, it is a sign that you are stepping outside the frameworks others can easily control. Those who cannot define you will try to distort you. Those who cannot fit you into an old mold will attempt to shrink you with words. But you were not born to fit into other people's comfort. You were born to walk faithfully in my purpose. Look at those I chose in Scripture. Moses was questioned and complained against by his own people, even as I used him to deliver them. David was overlooked by his family before I anointed him. Elijah believed he stood alone in faithfulness until I revealed that I had preserved others who had not bowed to idols. None of them built their reputation by pleasing the crowd. Their standing was formed through quiet obedience and unwavering trust that I knew who they were, even when others did not. I am teaching you to live with a new awareness. You do not need everyone to understand you in order to have worth. You do not need popular agreement to keep moving forward. Some paths, if they are widely affirmed from the beginning, are likely not the paths I have prepared for you. The way I open often runs ahead of public understanding. It requires you to walk without external confirmation, guided instead by inner assurance. And that assurance does not come from blind self-confidence, but from a deep relationship between you and me. I know there are moments when you want to defend yourself, to explain, to clarify, to protect your name. But my beloved child, there is a greater honor that I am guarding for you. When you do not rush to lift yourself up, I have room to lift you in my way. When you stop trying to preserve an image before people, I am free to form true character within you. A reputation you build yourself must constantly be defended. A reputation I give stands on its own. You do not need to polish what I have already made radiant. You do not need to shield what I have already covered. Learn to ask a different question, not what do people think of me, but what do I think of you? Not how do I appear in their eyes, but where am I standing in my relationship with you? When you change the measure, the weight on your shoulders will lift. You will stop living reactively and begin living responsively to my call. And then, even criticism will lose its power to pull you off course, because your direction has been anchored in me. There is a deep peace that comes only when you accept that not everyone is invited to understand you. Some depths of your life are reserved for me alone. If others saw everything, they would not know where to place it. So, I cover parts of your journey not to diminish you, but to protect what is sacred. You do not need to display your entire story to prove your authenticity. Truth does not need to perform. It releases its fragrance in time. The reputation before me is quiet, but enduring. It does not need to be constantly mentioned. Yet, it cannot be erased. And when I choose to bring you into the light, you will see that the years of misunderstanding were never wasted. They taught you how to stand without applause, how to remain faithful without immediate reward, how to love me more than the feeling of being affirmed. And that is precisely what makes you someone I can trust to place into new seasons. Let your heart rest in this truth: you were known before you were seen. You were called by name before you were recognized. You had value before you ever accomplished anything. That value does not increase when others praise you, and it does not decrease when they criticize you. It is anchored in me, and when you live from that place, you will no longer be pulled off balance by the shifting words of the world. You will walk more lightly, more freely, more steadily, not because everyone understands you, but because you know that I do, my beloved child. Inner freedom does not arrive when circumstances change. It arrives when your center is rightly placed. There are days when you think that if the slander would stop, if the suspicious looks would fade, if others would understand you just a little more, then your heart would finally feel light. But my child, if your peace still depends on what others think, you will always be carried about like a sail without an anchor. I do not want that life for you. I want you to learn how to anchor yourself in me, where wind no longer determines direction, and waves no longer dictate your breath. When you no longer live for the gaze of others, a very quiet door opens within your soul. You begin to hear my voice more clearly, because external noise no longer drowns it out. You begin to discern what truly requires action and what simply needs to be released. Before, you reacted quickly because you feared being misunderstood. Now, you slow down because you know you are known. Before, you managed appearances. Now, you tend to tell the truth. This is the shift I call maturity, when you stop trying to control impressions and choose instead to care for your identity. My child, there is a season I call the season of repositioning. It is not loud, yet it changes everything. In this season, I do not necessarily add many new relationships to your life. Instead, I refine the ones you already have. I do not necessarily open countless new opportunities. I clarify your motives within the opportunities that are already before you. I do not necessarily lift you up in the eyes of the world. I place you precisely where you belong within my design. And because of this, you may feel misunderstood, out of step with the crowd, or set apart from familiar circles. But my beloved child, being set apart is not always loss. Often, it is preservation. I know there are moments when you feel lonely in the choices you are making, not because you are arrogant, but because you no longer chase what once exhausted you. You no longer want to explain yourself excessively. You no longer want to argue just to be right. You no longer want to participate in conversations that drain you. The world may call this distance, but I call it wisdom. When you learn to guard your inner space, you are protecting the place where I most often meet you. That space must be kept clean, quiet, and undisturbed by emotions borrowed from others. Inner freedom also means you no longer punish yourself for what others say. You do not carry their words home with you. You do not replay them in your mind. You do not allow them to become the measure of your worth. You hear them, but you do not keep them. You discern what belongs to you and what does not. This is not indifference. It is discernment. I am not calling you to become hard. I am calling you to become precise. Precise in setting boundaries. Precise in choosing where you invest your energy. Precise in listening to me rather than to the crowd. I am leading you into a different way of living, living from the inside out. When you live this way, you are no longer pulled by every small reaction. You no longer need to prove your goodness. You no longer have to defend your purity with words. You allow your life to speak at a slower, steadier, clearer pace. And my child, not everyone will be able to keep up with that rhythm. Some will leave. Some will misunderstand. Some will label you as distant or cold. But I am there, and I know what you are doing. You are guarding your center. Remember, Jesus himself withdrew from the crowds, not because he feared them, but because he knew timing. He did not answer every question. He did not heal every request immediately. He did not remain everywhere people wanted to keep him. He moved according to my rhythm, not according to the pressure of surrounding needs. And that freedom kept his life from being consumed by the expectations of others. You are learning the same lesson. You do not need to be everywhere to have value. You need to be present where I place you. In this season of repositioning, I am also changing how you view success and failure. Before, you measured success by quick feedback, by visible recognition, by the feeling of being needed. Now, I am teaching you to measure success by quiet obedience, by faithfulness when no one is urging you on, by peace that cannot be stolen. You will notice that some days look as though nothing is moving forward. Yet within you, things are being rearranged. Some decisions appear to be losses, yet they are actually freeing you from old bindings. And some doors close not because you are inadequate, but because they no longer align with who you are becoming. Inner freedom also teaches you how to love without becoming dependent. You remain kind, but you do not allow your heart to be manipulated. You continue to give, but you do not trade away truth. You listen, but you do not grant every voice equal authority. You know when to stay and when to leave. And in all of this, you preserve something precious, the ability to remain with me without distraction. This is the deepest freedom, when you can rest in my presence without proving, explaining, or comparing. If today you feel as though you are in between, no longer belonging to old frameworks, yet not fully seeing the new ones, be at peace. Being in between is not being lost, it is transition. In this space, I remove old layers so you do not carry the past into the future. I teach you to slow down so you do not repeat choices that once exhausted you. I teach you to listen deeply so you do not confuse calling with noise. And I am very near, nearer than you think, guiding you, step by small but certain step. When you no longer live for the gaze of others, you will see life open in a very different way. Not louder, but truer. Not faster, but more enduring. Not more permissive, but freer. And in that freedom, you will realize that I am not only removing your burdens, I am returning you to yourself, the version not pulled off center, not fragmented, not depleted, the version that knows where it belongs and therefore is not afraid to stand alone. My beloved child, when you have walked far enough away from the need to be seen, something very quiet yet very solid begins to form within you, a deep settling. It is not excitement, nor is it loud confidence. It is the state of knowing you are in the right place, even if no one around you recognizes it yet. This settling does not come from having achieved something great, but from no longer being driven by voices that are not mine. You stand still without becoming stagnant. You move forward without rushing. And in that rhythm, your identity begins to stand upright, no longer leaning on external supports. There is a season when I do not lift you up immediately, even though you are inwardly ready. That season is the season when I place you correctly. This position is not always visible, but it is precise. It is like a foundation stone set deep beneath the ground. Few see it, yet everything built above depends on it. If that stone is not placed carefully, all that follows will tilt. I would rather keep you unseen for a time than bring you into the light before the foundation is mature. For light does not only reveal what is good, it also exposes what has not yet been healed. And I love you too much to place you where you would break. My child, when your identity is firmly set, you will notice a subtle but profound shift. You are no longer driven to prove that you are worthy. Before, every doubt could push you to explain. Every cold look could drive you to do more in order to be accepted. Now, you no longer react that way, not because you despise others, but because you have found where you belong. When you know you belong to me, you do not need the world's permission to exist. You do not need to negotiate your value. You do not need to adjust your essence to fit someone else's expectations. You begin to live from the deepest permission of all the permission that comes from me. My beloved child, I know you have walked through seasons where you believed that if you lived better, loved more, tried harder, then others would finally understand you. But hear me. My beloved, human understanding does not always follow integrity. Very often, it follows self-interest. When you are no longer easy to use, no longer easy to pull along, no longer willing to trade your boundaries to keep the peace. Some will say that you have changed, but that change is not the loss of what is good, it is maturity. You have not become hardened, you have become clear. And that clarity exposes many things that were previously hidden beneath ambiguity. There is something I want you to engrave deeply within your heart. The position where I place you is not so that you will be admired, but so that you will see clearly. When you stand in the right place, you are no longer dazzled by the light of others, nor swallowed by their darkness. You see everything in proper proportion. You know when to step forward, when to step back, and when to remain still. You no longer grasp at opportunities out of fear of missing out. You do not panic when a door has not yet opened, for you have learned that what is meant for you will not lose its way, and what is not meant for you, no matter how tightly you hold it, will only exhaust you. As you step into this new season, you will notice that true respect does not come from asserting yourself, but from no longer needing to. Others may not understand immediately, but they will sense one thing: you are not easily shaken, not because you are stubborn, but because you have an axis. That axis is not your ego, that axis is me. When I become the center, everything else finds its proper place. Healthy relationships will remain. Relationships rooted in control will fall away. Opportunities aligned with the right timing will come. Doors that do not belong to you will close without leaving regret behind. I want you to know that when you no longer feel the need to prove yourself, you will begin to draw others in naturally, not by attracting attention, but by attracting trust. People will feel safe around you not because you always say the right things, but because you do not live a double life. You do not try to impress, so your presence does not create pressure. You do not manipulate outcomes, so what unfolds around you has room to breathe. And it is precisely within that space that I am able to work fully. The steadiness of your identity does not separate you from others. It allows you to meet them from a healthier place. You do not approach them to seek value, but to offer value. You do not love in order to be filled, but you love from fullness. You do not serve to be recognized, but because service has become the natural flow of who you are becoming. When you live this way, even when no one says anything, you know you are walking in the right direction. And when words are spoken against you, they no longer have the power to throw you off rhythm. I know there are still moments when you wonder whether you are moving too slowly, whether you are being left behind, whether you are standing outside of things that matter. But my beloved child, my rhythm is never late. It is simply different from the rhythm of impatience. I do not measure your progress by speed, but by depth. I do not measure your success by how many follow you, but by how much you are becoming like me each day. And in this, you are going very far, even when you cannot always feel it. You are not stuck between two seasons. You are being placed at a precise point of intersection. That intersection is quiet, but it is crucial. From here, you will no longer need to return to old cycles to prove that you have changed. You will no longer feel compelled to explain why you choose silence, why you do not participate, why you move slowly. Your life will answer for you not with words, but with consistency, not with arguments, but with peace. Those who have eyes to see will see, and those who do not will no longer have the power to unsettle you. Step into this new season with your back straight and your heart soft. Do not carry old defenses into the space I am opening. Do not fear that if you do not lift yourself up, you will be overlooked. I am the one who lifts you. I am the one who positions you. I am the one who keeps you in the right place until the appointed time. And when that time comes, you will realize that not a single day of waiting was wasted. Not a single season of hiddenness was in vain. All of it has shaped you into someone who does not need to prove in order to be respected, does not need to argue in order to stand firm, does not need noise in order to be known. My beloved child, there are cracks that appear not because you are weak, but because you placed your trust in places that could not carry the weight of the light you bear. Betrayal does not always come from open enemies. Often it emerges from close circles, from hands that once held yours, from promises spoken softly yet believed deeply. I know the fall stunned you not because you were unaware that pain was possible, but because you chose to trust with your whole heart. But hear me, I am not ashamed of that. I do not reproach you for trusting. I am simply leading you through it so that your heart may be refined, not sealed shut. Some betrayals touch only the surface and pass quickly. Others are allowed to go deep because they awaken the most fundamental questions. To whom do you belong? On what foundation do you stand when what you believe to be secure collapses? I do not stand at a distance watching. I am very near, ensuring that the fall does not become fragmentation. I do not remove you from the pain immediately, because there are lessons that, if not walked through, would leave you carrying hidden fragility. I allow truth to surface, even when it hurts, because truth heals more enduringly than illusion. Betrayal has the power to reveal. It exposes not only the motives of others, but also unnamed expectations within you. You begin to see what you were hoping for, where you had placed your trust, and whom you had assigned a position they were never meant to hold. This does not make you wrong, it makes you human. But I use this moment to reorder love within you, so that the most important places are not occupied by hands that are not strong enough to hold them. When that order is restored, you will love more freely, more deeply, without becoming dependent. I know you have asked why I did not warn you earlier. But, my beloved child, if I revealed everything in advance, you would live in constant defense. I want you to live in trust. Trust does not mean naivety. Trust means being willing to walk with me even when you cannot see the entire road. And when betrayal comes, trust does not disappear. It is redirected. You learn to trust me more than the structures people build. You learn to place your foundation not on words, but on consistency. You learn to discern not by fleeting emotions, but by fruit over time. I do not waste any pain. Every crack you carry is not a sign of being broken. It is an opening for light to enter. You have heard the story of the cracked jar. Water leaks along the path and seems wasted. Yet those drops cause flowers to bloom along the way. So it is with me. I use what you think is loss to water dry places you had not yet noticed. From betrayal, I bring forth discernment. From hurt, I form compassion without pretense. From collapse, I build a new foundation deeper, stronger, more enduring. My beloved child, do not let betrayal turn you into someone who doubts everything. Wisdom does not need bitterness in order to survive. You can learn to set boundaries without closing your heart. You can see more clearly without becoming cold. You can love more slowly, more deeply without trading away your joy. I am not calling you to become a guarded person. I am calling you to become a rooted person. Deep roots allow a tree to stand firm and still welcome the sun. There are relationships I allow to leave not because they were entirely evil, but because they have completed their assignment. When you cling to what has ended its season, your hands are no longer free to receive what is new. Betrayal, though painful, is sometimes the only way you will release something without returning to it again. I know that sounds heavy, but I see beyond the moment. I see you in the seasons ahead, someone who will need lightness to move forward, clarity to choose well, and freedom to love without being pulled off center. Know this betrayal does not have the right to rewrite your story. It is a chapter, not a conclusion. You are not defined by what others have done to you, but by what you allow me to do within you. When you choose not to take revenge, you are not weak. You are strong in a way that does not destroy your future. When you choose not to repeat the old pattern, you are not missing out, you are being protected. When you choose forgiveness as a process, not rushed, not forced, you are releasing yourself from the invisible cord of the past. I do not hide the truth that the road ahead will still include trials, but it will be different. You will no longer walk with your eyes closed. You will no longer hand over authority too quickly. You will no longer confuse closeness with faithfulness. And in that difference, you will find peace arriving sooner, not because the world has changed, but because your position has changed. You are standing in me. Let me say this slowly, so you can hear it with your whole heart. Betrayal does not lessen your worth. It simply exposes the worth you carry, worth large enough that some will want to claim it, control it, or distort it. But what belongs to me cannot be taken. You may lose certain connections, but you do not lose yourself. You may lose certain illusions, but you regain truth. And that truth, painful at first, will become the ground where you stand steady. As you move forward from here, walk with gentleness toward yourself. Do not pressure your heart to be okay too quickly. Healing does not need haste. Give me time to do my delicate work, loosening old cords, mending torn places, and resetting your heartbeat to the rhythm of heaven. One day you will realize that the cracks that once hurt have become windows. Through them, you will see a new road, not a road without risk, but a road with me beside you. My beloved child, forgiveness is not a command for you to hurry and forget. It is a journey so you are no longer pulled backward each time an old memory touches you. I know there are days you think you have already moved on, and then one image, one sentence, or one familiar tone makes your heart tighten again. That does not mean you are weak or that you have failed at forgiving. It only means your heart is still learning how to breathe freely after what once crushed it. And I am there without pressure, without accusation, patiently walking with you. Forgiveness is not denying what happened, and it is not calling wrong right. Forgiveness is choosing not to let the past continue to dictate the present. It is deciding to lift the weight from your hands and place it into mine. When you forgive, you do not first set free the one who hurt you. You set free yourself from the role of carrying the wound for a lifetime. I am not asking you to move faster than you can. I am simply inviting you to move truthfully, one small, honest step at a time, without pretending you are fine when your heart still trembles. There are memories that cannot be erased, but they can be transformed. I do not remove your memory. I change its position. At first, it sits in the center, controlling reactions, steering emotions, shaping decisions. But when you allow me to work, I gradually return it to its proper place, not in the driver's seat, but in the archive of wisdom. The memory that once wounded you becomes a gentle warning signal, not a blaring alarm. You still remember, but you are no longer driven. You still know, but you no longer shake. I know there are times you fear that if you forgive, others will think what was done to you was not serious. But, my beloved, my justice does not depend on you holding bitterness. I am the righteous judge. You do not need to keep the books for me. Forgiveness does not erase responsibility, it simply returns responsibility to its rightful place. And when you place it into my hands, you will notice something surprising. The weight on your chest begins to lift. Your breath grows deeper, and your choices are no longer controlled by the fear of being hurt again. Remember, this forgiveness is not a one-time event. Some days you forgive through a whispered prayer. Some days you forgive by refusing to retell the old story. Some days you forgive by not returning to places that make you shrink. And some days you forgive by saying not yet to relationships that demand you trade away your boundaries. Every one of these is real. I see the honesty of your heart in each small choice, and I record it. Forgiveness does not require continued closeness. Forgiveness and reconciliation are not always the same thing. There are doors I do not reopen, not because you do not love enough, but because you have learned enough. You can bless from a distance, keep your heart free of bitterness, and still move forward. Heaven's wisdom does not force you back into old cycles to prove you are good. It leads you into new spaces where your heart can bloom without being trampled. When painful memories rise, do not push them away with violence toward yourself. Bring them to me. Tell me what you feel. I am not afraid of your truth. I am not shocked by anger, and I am not disappointed by tears. When you are honest, I have a place to touch, and in my presence, I teach you how to look back without falling in. I teach you to name the pain without letting it rule you. I teach you to remember without reliving. A quiet wisdom is born when a painful memory is healed. You begin to recognize signs sooner. You hear subtle misalignments. You learn the difference between beautiful promises and steady consistency. You no longer rush to hand authority to those who have not yet shown firmness. This does not make you suspicious, it makes you discern. And that discernment is a gift of the road you have walked, not to close your heart, but to help you choose well. I want you to forgive yourself. There are moments you blame yourself for trusting, for staying, for giving too much. But my beloved child, you did the best you could with what you knew then. Self-blame does not make you stronger, it only keeps you where I have already pulled you out. Let me speak righteousness over you. You were not foolish, you loved. You were not weak, you hoped. And love and hope, when placed in the right hands, become a strength that guides. As you allow me to heal your memories, you will feel their pull weakening. They will no longer intrude into new relationships. They will no longer decide your tone. They will no longer cause you to overreact to harmless moments. You will begin to live in the present with gentle awareness. And in that present, you will be able to choose again how to speak, how to stay, how to love without the past pulling the strings. Do not fear that this process will make you cold. It will make you warmer in a safer way. You will love without rushing, but with depth. You will trust without blindness, but with truth. You will give without depletion, because you will know when to stop, and I will be there placing each piece back where it belongs until you realize that the memories that once hurt you have become witnesses of the journey I have led you on from wound to freedom. My beloved child, restoration does not come by taking you back to where you began, but by leading you into a new form, stronger, clearer, and rightly aligned. I do not mend you so you can return to what you were. I rebuild you so you can step into what is new. After betrayal, after forgiveness, after the nights when you learned to slow your breathing with me, a delicate work has been unfolding. I am re-anchoring your trust in its proper place, not so that you trust less, but so that you trust rightly, not so that you close your heart, but so that you open it with discernment. Trust, when placed correctly, does not weaken you, it frees you. You may notice this through a very subtle change. You no longer hand over authority as quickly as before. Where you once confused closeness with faithfulness, now you wait for fruit. Where you once believed beautiful promises, now you look for steady consistency. Where you once opened doors out of fear of disappointing others, now you guard them out of reverence for the life within you. This is not suspicion, it is discernment. I am not calling you to become closed off. I am calling you to place trust according to heaven's rhythm. After hurt, the heart often learns to stand watch, to keep distance as a form of protection. I respect that instinct, but I do not want you to live forever on guard. I want you to learn how to smile without constantly looking over your shoulder, how to hope without breaking yourself, how to receive good things without waiting for the hidden cost. Restored joy is not forgetfulness, it is proof that the lesson has completed its work. When you can rejoice and still be alert, love and still be clear, I know the process has reached its mark. There are new relationships I am preparing for you, not loud, not performative, but enduring. They will not demand that you prove yourself, will not draw you into power games, will not be sustained by vague promises. They will come through steady presence, through few but truthful words, through consistent action over time. You will recognize them because they do not make you shrink, they give you room to grow. And you will notice that you no longer feel the need to constantly check trust. When rightly placed, allows you to rest. Restoration also means I am teaching you how to remain with good things without sabotaging them. When blessing arrives, you no longer ask, "How long until this is taken away?" you ask, "How do I tend this well?" When a door opens, you do not rush through in panic, you step across with reverence. When you are loved, you do not interrogate motives, you listen to the rhythm. This is the sign of a healed heart. It neither denies good nor idealizes it, it receives with gentle wisdom. Do not forget, restoration does not erase memory, it changes where memory lives. What once made you tremble no longer governs your voice. What once made you defensive no longer drives your decisions. You can remember without pain, you can tell the story without collapsing. And when you share, your story is no longer a cry for rescue, it becomes a testimony, not one that displays itself, but one that steadies others, enough for them to know there is a way through, and that I am faithful. In this restoration, I am also rebuilding your trust in yourself. You are learning to trust intuition that has been purified, to trust perception no longer pulled by fear, to trust your ability to say, "Not yet," without guilt. You no longer doubt yourself each time you set a boundary. You no longer need permission to protect the life entrusted to you. Self-trust, when placed under my light, does not become pride, it becomes consistency. A new door is appearing not with a loud announcement, but with quiet alignment. It does not ask you to run from the past, it invites you into the future with your baggage properly ordered. It does not require you to become someone else, it welcomes you as you are. As you stand before it, you will realize you are no longer carrying bitterness, no longer bearing the burden of proof, no longer fearing repetition. You carry clarity, softness, and trust, things that can only be forged through what you have walked through. Step slowly across that threshold. There is no need to hurry. What is meant for you will not disappear if you honor your pace. I have placed you at the right time, in the right place, with a heart that has been prepared. And if there is one thing I want you to carry, it is this: you do not need to go back to prove that you are healed. Your healing will speak for itself through the way you are present, more peaceful, more clear, more loving, and more free. I am with you in this step as I have been with you in every step before. I did not bring you here to make you afraid. I brought you here so you could live. Enter what is new with gratitude, not because everything has become easy, but because I have been faithful. And when you look back on the road behind you, you will see betrayal was not the end. It was a hidden door that led you to a place where you could trust again, rightly placed, rightly paced, and true to who you are becoming. My beloved child, there is a kind of righteousness that needs no stage, no introduction, and no crowd to witness it. This righteousness grows in the shade of quiet faithfulness, where you continue to walk the right path even when no one applauds. I call it righteousness that knows how to wait. Waiting not because of powerlessness, but because you trust that truth does not need to be forced into view. When you do not rush to defend yourself, you are allowing me to do the work that only I can do completely, returning everything to its proper place, proportion, and time. You have walked through days when lies seemed louder than truth, when twisted stories were repeated often enough to appear real. I know that wearied you not because you feared judgment, but because you love integrity. Yet, my child, integrity does not lose its value when it is hidden. It is simply waiting for the right light. If you were to turn on the light before the foundation was ready, it could expose what should not yet be exposed, wounding both you and others. I do not work according to the pressure of public opinion. I work according to the rhythm of truth, and that rhythm, though slower than your longing, is always exact. There is a very subtle difference between defending reputation and guarding the soul. Many choose the first and lose the second. I have taught you to choose the second, because when the soul is preserved, reputation will be restored in a more enduring way. When you refuse to enter the spiral of self-justification, you are not abandoning truth, you are preserving the space for truth to stand on its own. Truth, when it rises by its own strength, does not need you to hold it up. It stands firm, it shines, and it cannot be pushed down again. My beloved child, quiet righteousness does not mean you feel nothing. You feel deeply. You feel pain when you are labeled, heaviness when you are misunderstood, loneliness when you stand alone in the choice not to retaliate. And it is precisely in those moments that I draw nearer. I whisper so you remember that you are not forgotten in silence. I am there, counting each time you swallow words that might relieve your emotions but burden your soul. I am there, recording every time you choose softness over sharpness, patience over heat. And I tell you, those choices are accumulating a weight that words cannot carry. When I defend you, I do not do it with noise. I do it through reversal. What is built on falsehood collapses under contradiction. What is spread through malice exposes itself through inconsistency. You do not need to tear off anyone's mask. Time will do that. I do not need you to gather evidence. Light will find the cracks. Your task right now is not to hunt for justice, but to keep your heart from being distorted by injustice. I do not need others to serve as spokespeople for your truth. I am your guarantor. When I decide to make things clear, I will do so in a way no one can deny, without campaigns, without arguments, without struggle. In one precisely timed moment, truth will step forward and stand firm. And when that happens, you will see that the months of silence did not weaken you. They strengthened you in ways no one expected. There are times you wonder whether silence will cause you to be forgotten. But my beloved, what I am doing is not forgetting, it is arranging. I am arranging context, arranging people, arranging timing. If I were to bring you into the light too soon, you would have to fight to stay there. When I bring you out at the right time, you will be received through alignment itself. The difference is vast. One exhausts, the other sustains, and I desire that you be sustained. My beloved child, quiet righteousness also teaches you how to speak when speaking is necessary, not to strike back, but to set boundaries, not to prove yourself, but to bring clarity. Your words in this season will be fewer, yet more precise. They will not carry anger, and therefore they will not create new enemies. They will carry peace, and because of that, they will open the way for healthy dialogue. You do not need to win every argument in order to live rightly. Sometimes the truest victory is leaving a conversation with your soul still intact. When the truth begins to rise, and it will remember how you walked through the shadows. Do not become proud of the reversal. Do not take pleasure in the confusion of others. Do not savor the feeling of, "I told you so." My righteousness does not feed on comparison or triumph. When I lift you up, I also protect you from becoming someone you were never meant to be. You will step out of the darkness with clean hands and clear eyes, carrying none of the bitterness of the journey behind you. Do not forget, quiet righteousness does not make you smaller, it makes you deeper. And those who are deep remain steady when the ground shakes. When lies lose their footing, the deep do not need to run, they already have roots. You have roots now. The silent days, the gentle choices, the unannounced steps, each one has anchored you in me. And because of that, when the truth stands up, you will not be swept away by the new wave. You will stand still, aligned, unhurried, faithful to the person you have been formed to be. My beloved child, the moment of vindication does not come when you are most eager for it, but when you are strong enough not to be consumed by its outcome. I know you once longed for the truth to surface sooner so the rumors would quiet, the suspicious glances would soften, and your heart could breathe. But if I had done it while your heart was still easily stirred, vindication would have become a loud and fleeting victory. I waited until you were steady, so that the light would not only reveal truth, but also guard your soul from pride, retaliation, and unhealthy satisfaction at the reversal of others. When I turn the story around, I do not merely reverse words, I change the entire context. What was once believed because it was repeated often will lose its place when inconsistency is exposed. Pieces once arranged against you will no longer fit when light shines on them. I do not need you to point out what is wrong. I allow truth to reassemble itself. And when everything settles into place, those who observe will realize that what they once believed cannot stand. Vindication like this requires no debate. It causes hearts to recalibrate on their own. I do not expose in order to humiliate. I expose in order to heal. I do not lower others to raise you. I raise you by placing you where you truly belong. For if vindication were to produce a sense of victory over others, it would plant a seed that would later need to be uprooted. I do not want you living by reaction. I want you living by presence. That is why, when the light comes, I also teach you how to stand in it without being burned. You will recognize that moment through very quiet signs, rumors weakening on their own, questions arising on the other side, shifts in tone, doors once closed, beginning to open without you knocking. Not everyone will apologize. Not everyone will admit they were wrong. But, my beloved child, vindication does not require universal agreement to be complete. It is complete when you no longer live under the shadow of the old story. It is complete when you walk lighter, freer, without needing to look back. I know there is a silent concern when the light shines brighter. Will you be pulled into maintaining a new image? Do not be afraid. My light does not ask you to perform. It only asks you to be yourself, the version refined by truth. You do not need to speak more. You only need to live rightly. You do not need to prove anything. You only need to remain consistent. Consistency is the language of truth. And that language does not need to be loud. Some people, when the story turns, will try to draw you into a new kind of confrontation, either through flattery or through belated accusation. I teach you something essential in this season. Keep your heart centered. Do not let praise lift you above your axis. And do not let resentment weigh you down again. You learned how to stand firm in silence. Now learn how to stand firm in the light. Both require inner discipline, and I am there, reminding you to breathe slowly, reminding you where you belong. When truth rises, it also brings a new responsibility, the responsibility to keep your heart soft amid recognition. Many fall not in trial, but in success. I do not want you to fall. That is why I led you through the long road of quiet righteousness, so that when the light comes, you will not be intoxicated by it. You will know how to receive gratitude without clinging, how to accept without trading away your integrity, how to move forward without leaving gentleness behind. You will see that my vindication often opens doors that are fitting, not flashy, but right, spaces where you do not have to defend yourself, partnerships that do not require you to bend, relationships not sustained by promises alone. You will realize you are no longer drawn to noisy stages. You choose firm foundations, and that choice will protect you far longer than any brief moment of recognition ever could. Light does not only shine outward, it also shines inward. As things become clearer, you may notice small corners of your heart still needing care, a trace of pride, a lingering desire to be seen, a quiet fear of being misunderstood again. Do not panic. Light comes to heal, not to condemn. Bring these things to me. I will fine-tune them, like a skilled craftsman tuning the strings of an instrument, so the melody of your life can sound whole. I also want you to know that not every truth needs to be spoken all at once. Some things I clarify before you, others I clarify within the hearts of others. You do not need to force the timing. You do not need to close the story. When you allow me to lead, every piece will fall into place. And when it does, you will feel a quiet calm like the sea after a storm, needing no announcement that it is at rest. Walk through this season with clear eyes and a humble heart. When the light shines brighter, remember the days you walked in the shade, not with pride, but with gratitude. Those days taught you how to stand, how to choose rightly, how to trust. And because of them, my vindication does not pull you away from me. It draws you closer. For you know now, more than ever, every good thing comes not from your strength, but from heaven's faithfulness. My beloved child, when truth has risen and light has shone long enough for darkness to lose its hiding place, what matters most is no longer what has been clarified, but how you choose to walk from here. There is a way of walking after vindication that brings lightness, and there is a way that makes the soul heavy again even when everything is clear. I do not want you carrying a new burden, the burden of maintaining a right image, of living up to the reversal, or of proving that others were wrong. I want you to walk as one who has been freed, not as one who has merely won a dispute. Remember, this light is not the destination. Light is the condition that allows you to walk forward safely. If you stop to stand in the light for too long, you may forget that the road still stretches ahead. That is why I teach you the art of passing through the light without being blinded by it. This requires intentional humility, not lowering yourself, but placing yourself on the right axis. You receive recognition without clinging to it. You hear apologies if they come without holding on. You give thanks without keeping score. You do not need to retell the old story to secure a new position. Your consistency will do that far better than any explanation. There is a very subtle temptation in this season, the urge to go back and correct other people's memories. You may want to give them details, to reset every milestone, to make sure they understand correctly. But I say to you, choose the future rather than the past. Other people's memories are not your responsibility. When you return to correct them, you unknowingly pull yourself back to the place I have already led you out of. Let truth settle in them at their own pace. You do not need to witness that process to be free. I also want you to guard something precious, a soft heart. After vindication, softness is often mistaken for weakness. In truth, it is the sign of strength that has been refined. You have endured enough pain to know that bitterness protects nothing. So when you encounter those who once misunderstood you, keep a posture without sharp edges, not to erase boundaries, but to prevent the past from shaping your tone. Your words in this season should be foundational, brief, true, and without barbs. You do not need to say everything. You only need to say what is right. When the light has done its work, I begin preparing you for the next transition. This step is not as dramatic as vindication, but it requires alertness. You will see new invitations. Not all of them are meant for you. You will see doors open. Not all of them need to be entered. I teach you to use peace as your measure. Anything that requires you to trade integrity in order to be accepted does not come from me. Anything that asks you to bend yourself to hold a position is not fitting. You have learned too much to return to old compromises. You may be surprised to discover that after vindication, you no longer crave visibility the way you once did. This is not a loss of motivation, it is a reorientation. You no longer live to be affirmed. You live to be sent. When you understand this difference, you will save a great deal of energy. You do not need to be everywhere. You do not need to answer every call. You choose places with good soil where you can sow without constant vigilance, where you can build without remaining on guard. My beloved child, I also want you to be prepared for this. Some people will continue to hold on to the old story, even when the light is clear. This is not the failure of vindication. It is the limitation of the human heart. You do not need to wait for them to change in order to move forward. When you stop because of them, you give them authority over your pace. I did not give them that authority. I gave it to you to walk with me. And as you walk, you will notice a natural distance forming between you and what no longer fits. That distance is not division, it is order. Remember this well, humility after light is not retreat, it is focus. You focus on what I am saying now, not on what others said before. You focus on caring for your soul, not on tracking the echoes of public opinion. You focus on faithfulness in small things, because those small things will open the way to greater things in due time. When you live this way, your life will take on a beautifully steady rhythm, no longer pulled by praise, no longer jolted by rumor. There is a very clean joy that comes only after vindication, a joy that does not need to prove anything. You smile not because you were right, but because you were kept. You breathe easier not because others changed, but because you are no longer carrying the burden of trying to change them. You walk not to be seen, but because you know the way. That joy is the sign that you have truly crossed over. Vindication does not mean I am finished with you. It simply completes a chapter. The next chapter will require the same inner discipline you have learned, knowing when to speak and when to be silent, when to move and when to wait, when to open and when to guard. You already have these tools. You were shaped in silence. You stood in the light, and you were kept in peace. So you do not enter what is new empty-handed. You enter with wisdom that has been tested. Go on with a grateful heart. Gratitude not because everything became easy, but because I have been faithful. Gratitude not because no one misunderstands you anymore, but because you are no longer ruled by it. Gratitude not because the light shines, but because you know how to stand in the light without losing yourself. And as you step into the next chapter, carry this with you. Silent righteousness taught you how to wait. Vindication taught you how to stand. Now, I am teaching you how to walk gently, steadily, and rightly aligned. My child, after the mists of misunderstanding have lifted and the light has settled on the path before you, I begin a very gentle work, the refining of love, not because you loved wrongly, but because you loved too broadly, without order. You opened your heart with rare sincerity. You gave without calculation. You stayed when it would have been wiser to rest. I do not fault you for this. I honor your loving heart. But, my child, for love to endure, it must be placed in the right place, at the right pace, with the right people. And this is what I am teaching you in this season. You will notice that this refining does not come through loud instruction, but through subtle awareness. You begin to tire sooner in relationships that require too much explanation. You begin to lose peace around those who draw near only when they need something. You start to see the difference between those who truly listen and those who are merely waiting for their turn to speak. These signs are not for judgment, they are guidance for choice. I do not want you to love less, I want you to love more accurately, so that love is no longer the place where you are drained, but the place where life is exchanged. My beloved child, there are people I have removed from your life not because they were entirely bad, but because they could not walk with you to where I am leading you. And there are also people I am preparing for who will not enter noisily, who will not need introductions because they come by alignment. They are not drawn to your light as something to consume. They honor that light as something to be protected. They do not come to test you, they come to walk alongside you. You will recognize them because they do not make you tense, do not pull you into games of power, do not force you to choose between truth and closeness. In their presence, your breathing slows, not because emotion is absent, but because defense is no longer required. I know you have grown accustomed to loving by staying one step ahead, anticipating needs, filling gaps, carrying the rhythm for both sides. But, my child, Love that has been refined does not ask you to be the sole keeper of the rhythm. It allows you to stand alongside, neither above nor below. It allows you to receive without guilt, to say no without fear of loss, to be silent without being accused of leaving. This kind of love does not need to prove itself. It stands firm through consistency. In this season, I am teaching you how to receive. Receiving is a sacred skill, and not everyone learns it easily. After hurt, you may have grown more comfortable giving than receiving, because giving gives you a sense of control. But, my child, when you do not allow yourself to receive, you unknowingly close the door I want to use to nourish you. Receiving does not make you dependent. It brings you into balance. Receiving does not make you weak. It allows love to flow in both directions. Like a river that is not blocked on one side, you will learn to receive kindness without questioning the motive. You will learn to accept help without diminishing yourself. You will learn to receive affection without waiting for a hidden cost. This will not happen in a single day. It grows through safe experiences, where words are matched by actions, where time confirms what the heart begins to sense. I am not in a hurry. I arrange space and evidence enough for a new kind of trust that is not blind, but not closed either. Love that has been refined also means you no longer seek salvation from people. You love them, but you do not place them in a position that belongs only to me. When you do not require someone to fill your deepest spaces, you free them from a burden that was never theirs to carry. And when you free them, you free yourself as well. Love then becomes light not because it is shallow, but because it is rightly ordered. Pay attention to how you love yourself in this season, not through grand declarations, but through small choices. You rest when you are tired. You leave when your spirit tightens. You speak truth when needed. You keep boundaries when you must. Loving yourself does not oppose loving others. It creates the foundation for healthy love. When you honor your own rhythm, you will draw those who honor that rhythm as well. When you tend the life within you, you will meet those who come to water, not to harvest. I tell you this, you are not difficult to approach. You are simply clearer. Clarity makes some people uncomfortable, because they once benefited from ambiguity. But clarity protects love from misunderstanding and unnecessary harm. It allows the right people to stay and those who are not aligned to leave without argument. I am leading you into a new way of loving, not driven by intensity, but by durability, not swept along by promises, but grounded in presence, not measured by fleeting feelings, but by the rhythm of a shared life over time. This way of loving may appear quieter, but it nourishes more deeply. It gives you time to observe, to listen, to let fruit appear. And when the fruit appears, you will not need to ask further questions. You will know. Walk slowly in love. Do not rush to label. Do not rush to grant authority. Do not rush to withdraw. Allow the truth of each connection to reveal itself with time. I am there reminding you when to pause, encouraging you when to open, and holding you when you are uncertain. The love I have for you is the pattern steady, faithful, never forcing. When you love according to that pattern, you will not lose yourself, and you will not lead others astray. My beloved child, relationships that are arranged do not arrive with loud announcements, nor do they rely on beautiful promises to prove their worth. They come with quiet resonance, where you do not have to strain to remain, nor shrink yourself to fit. I have taught you through many seasons that not all closeness is companionship, and not all familiarity is faithfulness. Therefore, in this season, I invite you to learn a very subtle art discernment, not by momentary emotion, but by the rhythm of life over time. You will recognize the right companions because they do not cause you to lose your bearings. With them, you do not need to explain why you need silence, nor ask permission to live at your own pace. They do not rush you forward, nor slow you down because of their own fears. They respect your process as I do, because they are not there to take space, but to walk together. Such relationships do not need many words. Their presence itself is the answer. With them, you are neither defensive nor performing. You are simply yourself, whole and at peace. My child, I know you once grew accustomed to connections built on intensity, strong emotions, many promises, high expectations. Intensity can feel alive, but it can also drain you. I am leading you out of that kind of attachment and into durability. Durability does not need to prove itself every day. It reveals itself through consistency over time. The right companion will not turn every disagreement into a crisis, nor interpret every silence as distance. They understand that the rhythm of rest is just as important as the rhythm of movement. In this discernment, I am also teaching you to listen to your body and your soul. When a relationship causes you to tighten inward, that is a signal. When you must constantly explain your good intentions, that is a sign. When you return from every encounter feeling depleted, that is a reminder. I do not use these signs for you to judge others. I use them to help you protect the life I have planted within you. That life needs the right environment to grow, and not every environment is meant for it. My child, relationships that are arranged do not rush intimacy. They allow trust to be built brick by brick, a promise kept, a timely presence, a consistent posture when no one is watching. You will find that you no longer need to check constantly or scrutinize every detail. Trust, when placed rightly, brings rest. And in that rest, you have space to love without exhaustion. Discernment is not closing the door to everyone. It is opening the door selectively. You do not need many people. You need the right ones. A few healthy connections are far more valuable than many that fragment you. When you choose quality, you choose durability. And durability will keep you standing when other seasons come, seasons of pressure, of change, of new testing. I know there are moments when you fear that being selective will leave you lonely. But, my child, loneliness does not come from having few people. It comes from being in the wrong place. You can be surrounded by a crowd and still feel alone if no one touches the truest place within you. And you can be with only a few and feel full if they meet you from that honest place. I am not leaving you alone. I am gathering you into the right circle, a circle not large, but strong. I am also teaching you how to build connection without depletion by establishing a shared rhythm. A shared rhythm is an unspoken agreement that both sides honor each other's limits. No one has to rescue the other. No one has to carry a role that is too heavy. No one has to sacrifice truth to maintain harmony. When conflict arises, it is handled with respect, not with punishing silence or sharp words. You will find that you can say, "I need time," without being accused of leaving. And the right person will wait not because they are forced to, but because they understand. Relationships that are arranged also encourage your growth rather than keeping you manageable. They are not threatened by your light. They are not envious of your development. On the contrary, they rejoice when you become stronger, clearer, freer. They do not compete with you, they walk with you. And you will also learn to celebrate their growth, without comparison. When both stand in their rightful place, no one needs to stand above another. Remember this: you do not owe anyone a presence beyond your capacity. Love is not about always being available. Love is about being fully present when you are present, and being able to rest without guilt when you need rest. The right relationships will honor this. The wrong ones will demand a trade. And I am there to remind you to choose what protects life. As you walk in this discernment, you will find that your social world is not louder, but deeper, not wider, but truer. You will have conversations that require no armor, silences that need no filling, presences that need no explanation. And in those moments, you will know that I have led you to the right place, a place where love does not exhaust you, where connection does not diminish you, where companionship does not cause you to lose your way, my beloved child. Maturity in love does not close your heart. It teaches your heart where to be. You remain soft, but not fragile. You remain open, but not disordered. You are still capable of being moved, but no longer swept away. I did not bring you here to make you cautious of what is good. I brought you here to teach you how to care for what is good with gentle wisdom. Mature love does not trade life to preserve emotion, nor sacrifice truth to maintain peace. It chooses faithfulness to heaven's rhythm, a rhythm just sufficient to nurture and just sufficient to protect. You have learned that keeping your heart soft does not mean allowing everything access. Your softness now has boundaries, not walls, but living fences. Those fences allow light to pass through. Allow love to draw near, but do not permit repeated intrusion. When you say not yet, you are not cold. You are honoring the rhythm of healing. When you say no, you are not selfish. You are safeguarding the life I have planted. And when you say yes, you say it with your whole self undivided, unburdened. Maturity in love also teaches you when to stay and when to leave. Both can be acts of love. Staying is not endless endurance. Staying is walking together in truth. Leaving is not abandonment. Leaving is restoring order. I do not call you to choose what is easy. I call you to choose what is right. And what is right often carries a deep peace, even if it is quiet at first. That peace does not come from everyone being satisfied, but from your soul no longer being torn apart. A new gentleness is forming in the way you love, a gentleness that does not rush. You no longer push relationships to go somewhere. You allow time to do its work. You observe fruit rather than count promises. You listen for shared rhythm rather than measure intensity. This gentleness does not slow you down. It makes you precise, and that precision protects you from investing your heart where there is no foundation. My beloved child, I am also teaching you how to handle conflict without losing a soft heart. When disagreements arise, you neither avoid them nor escalate them. You speak truth in love. You listen in order to understand, and you are willing to step back when the conversation no longer builds life. You do not need to win in order to be right. You do not need to lose in order to keep the peace. You keep your direction, and that direction is life. Maturity in love does not try to erase differences. It learns how to hold differences without causing harm. You have learned how to love without rescuing. You no longer carry the responsibility of healing others at the cost of forgetting yourself. You trust that each person has their own journey with me, and you no longer need to take my place. This frees you from an invisible burden and returns lightness to love. Loving this way does not drain you. It fills you filled with peace, filled with vitality, filled with a clean joy. Sustainable wholeness does not come from gathering enough people, enough moments, or enough emotions. It comes from being in the right place with the right people, at the right rhythm. Lasting fullness does not fear quiet days. It honors them. It does not require constant stimulation. It cultivates depth. In that fullness, you can be alone without loneliness, and with others without losing yourself. You do not try to fill emptiness. You live from the fullness I have already planted within you. I am preparing you for days when you love without defending yourself, yet without being reckless. You will discover that you can receive good things without waiting for a price. You can rejoice without being guarded. You can trust without being blind. These are the signs of a heart that has been trained not by fear, but by faithfulness that has been tested. When you live this way, love is no longer a battlefield. It becomes a place of rest. Let your love take the shape of truth, clear, consistent, and rhythmic. Do not let the pressure to become something pull you away from who you are. You do not need to perform in order to be loved. You do not need to act in order to stay. The right people will recognize you by your presence, not by your performance, and you will recognize them by peace, not by emotional waves. Remember this: keeping a soft heart is a discipline, not a reflex. It must be nurtured through prayer, through listening, through small daily choices. When you are tired, you rest. When you are uncertain, you wait. When you see clearly, you step forward. I am there in every rhythm, reminding you that you are not doing this alone. Mature love does not arise by itself. It grows in communion with me. As you close this part, know that you have come very far, not on a map, but in depth. You have learned to love without losing yourself, to keep a soft heart without allowing repeated harm, and to prepare for a fullness that does not fade quickly. From this foundation, I will lead you into the next chapter, where love will not only heal you, but through you, heal others in a very natural way. My beloved child, honor at the right time does not arrive as a sudden leap that overwhelms you, but as a steady step onto ground I have long prepared. I do not lift you up so that you may be seen. I place you rightly so that you may see clearly. When the time comes, you will realize that every stretch of the road behind you, days of silence, gentle choices, refusals of noise never slowed you down. They aligned you. And the one who is aligned does not need to rush to arrive. They arrive because they were already facing the right direction. There is a vast difference between lifting yourself up and being lifted by me. Self-promotion forces you to guard position, protect image, and maintain attention. Being lifted by me is different. You are placed into influence without trading away peace. That influence does not come from speaking more, but from being rightly present. Others will sense something in you that is hard to name, not loud authority, but quiet trustworthiness. And that very trust opens doors for you before you ever knock. I know you once feared that being placed in influence would pull you back into cycles of expectation, judgment, and comparison. But hear me, I do not place you where you would lose yourself. I place you where you can give without being depleted. Influence at the right time does not require you to become someone else. It requires you to be yourself, the refined version. You do not strain to lead. You lead by the rhythm of your life. You do not impose to be heard. You are heard because you live consistently. There were seasons when I kept you hidden to protect your heart. But now that you have learned how to keep a soft heart, even in the light, I no longer need to cover you. I bring you forward not for display, but so that you may serve from a healed place. Serving from that place does not exhaust you, it fills you. Because you are no longer drawing from old reserves, but from a flowing source. That source is me. And when you remain near the source, you do not fear running dry. Honor at the right time also comes with a new discipline, the discipline of simplicity. As opportunities increase, you will need greater selectivity. As invitations multiply, you will need deeper listening. As influence expands, you will need to guard your center more carefully. I do not call you to do every good thing. I call you to do what is assigned. What is assigned always carries peace, even when it is challenging. What is not assigned always demands a trade, even if it looks attractive. I also want you to know that honor at the right time does not erase ordinary days. On the contrary, it makes ordinary days profoundly important. You will not live in constant high moments. You will live in a steady rhythm, doing small things well, keeping quiet commitments, tending close relationships. True influence is built on habits no one applauds, and you already have that foundation. You learned faithfulness when no one was watching. Now you will remain faithful when people are watching, without being changed by it. When I place you into a new position, you will notice something unexpected. You will not feel the need to prove that you belong there. You will arrive with the calm of one who knows they were placed. That calm eases the tension around you. Others sense that they do not have to compete to be near you. They are invited into a safe space. And in that space, good things can grow without being trampled by ego. You may be asked about the journey behind you. You do not need to tell every detail to convince. Tell enough to strengthen. Speak truth without boasting. Mention me more than you mention pain. When you do this, your story does not become a trophy. It becomes a map for those still searching for a way. I do not honor you so that you stand above others. I honor you so that you see the road more clearly and point it out with compassion. The completion I am leading you toward is not a closed destination, but an open state living aligned, loving in rhythm, serving in the right place. In this state, you no longer fear being diminished, because you know who lifts you. You no longer fear being misunderstood, because you know who knows you. You no longer fear missing out, because you know what is meant for you will arrive on time. This safety does not come from circumstances, it comes from communion. I also remind you of something very practical. Keep the rhythms that have kept you alive: prayer, rest, listening, honesty about limits. Do not abandon them when a new rhythm arrives. The new rhythm does not replace the old. It depends on it to stand firm. Many fall not because responsibilities grow, but because small disciplines are neglected. Do not neglect them. They are living fences that protect life. My child, as you step into influence, you will encounter both praise and doubt. Receive both with the same lightness. Praise will not lift you off your axis. Doubt will not pull you off it. You have learned how to stand in silence and in light. Now you are learning how to stand in motion. This motion is not rushed or frantic, but clear. And I am there adjusting the rhythm when needed, opening doors at the right time, closing doors when enough is enough. Remember, honor at the right time does not make you more important. It makes you more fitting. Fitting for what I am doing. Fitting for who you have become. Fitting for those I will send to you. And when you live in that fitting place, you will see that every piece, pain, waiting, refinement, love has done its work. The journey does not close with loud applause. It opens with a steady step. You step, and I step with you, my beloved child. When influence expands and doors place you where there are more eyes upon you, what keeps you safe is not skill, but humility practiced daily. Humility is not lowering your worth. Humility is living true to your source. You know where you come from, who you stand with, and what sustains you. One who knows their source does not panic when noticed, nor waver when questioned, because the source does not change. The flow does not need to strain to be strong. I want you to understand this: true influence always requires a hidden discipline. That discipline is not meant to control others, but to protect the inner source. Your source is the place where you meet me, where silence has a voice, where truth does not need to prove itself, where your heart is realigned each day. If you allow that source to run dry, you may still function, still be heard, but you will be giving from old reserves, and that will weary your soul. Therefore, keep the rhythms that have sustained you, non-negotiable quiet spaces, unasked for rest, unpublicized prayers. They are living fences that keep your influence from drying you out. Humility in the midst of influence is also revealed in how you listen. When you are asked for counsel, listen before you speak. When you are invited to lead, discern before you accept. When you are praised, place the praise at my feet and move on. Do not hold it in your hands too long. It can occupy your grip and leave no room for what I want to give you next. You do not need to reject recognition. You simply must not allow it to shape your identity. Your identity is already anchored, and it does not shift when the crowd changes its tone. I am also teaching you something very practical. Protect your inner source by being selective about conversations. Not every question requires an answer. Not every invitation needs an immediate response. Not every disagreement must be resolved at once. When you learn to delay reaction, you allow wisdom to lead. Delay is not avoidance. It is setting the pace so that truth emerges at the right time. And truth, when it arrives on time, will not steal your peace. Amid influence, you will encounter people who want to borrow your light to illuminate their own agendas. I am not saying they are evil. I am saying they are not what I have assigned to you. You have permission to say no without lengthy explanations. Your no is a yes to what I am doing. When you keep boundaries this way, you do not impoverish love. You give love good soil in which to grow. Good soil is not wide, but it is deep, and seeds planted deep will stand when the winds change. Humility also means remembering that you are not the answer for everyone. I am the Savior. You are the one sent. You give what I assign, no more, no less. When you try to become the solution for every pain, you will trade away your vitality. When you are faithful to your portion, you allow me to be faithful to mine. This division of roles protects both you and others. It keeps your influence within healthy limits, limits that nourish rather than suffocate. Pay attention to small warning signs when you become so busy that you can no longer hear clearly. When you begin to fear disappointing people more than fearing drifting out of rhythm with me. When you start measuring days by outcomes instead of by presence. That is the moment to pause, not to quit, but to adjust. I am not calling you to run faster. I am calling you to run on the right path. Early adjustment is wisdom. Late adjustment is costly. I also want you to keep a learner's heart. Influence does not mean you are finished. It opens new lessons. Learn from those who have gone before you without copying them. Learn from those walking beside you without comparing. Learn from those coming after you without condescension. When you keep the posture of a learner, you are not trapped in the image of yourself. You allow me to keep fine-tuning you like a skilled craftsman, adjusting strings so the music stays in tune as the hall grows larger. My child, guarding the inner source is also guarding joy. Joy is not the final reward, it is fuel. When you lose clean joy, you will try to compensate with intensity, doing more, speaking louder, controlling tighter. But when you keep joy, you do less with depth, speak less with clarity, and lead without forcing. Clean joy flows from knowing you are loved before being used, kept before being placed, known before being seen. There is one practice I want you to live with daily. End each day by returning things to me. Return the praise. Return the burdens. Return the unanswered questions. Do not carry them into sleep. Sleep is the language of trust. When you sleep in peace, you declare that the world does not rest on your shoulders. I work even while you rest. And when you wake, you will find that many things have aligned themselves without your hands touching them. Full completion does not arrive in a grand moment. It arrives in a life rhythm faithfully kept. When you maintain humility amid influence, guard your inner source, and remain faithful to what you are assigned. Your journey moves into wholeness, not because everything is finished, but because you are living rightly, rightly aligned, rightly paced, rightly placed. And within that rightness, I have room to keep opening doors without overwhelming you, without draining you, only growing you in a quiet and steady way, my beloved child. The completion I give you does not take the shape of a final period, but of a peaceful circle where you can look back without being pulled backward, remember without heaviness, and move forward without needing to turn your head. You have walked far enough to know that completion does not mean every question is answered. It means your heart has found its resting place. When the heart rests, the past no longer calls you back to fix it. The present no longer forces you to strain, and the future no longer frightens you. You stand in me, and that is enough. Look back on the road behind you with gentle eyes, not eyes of self-reproach for having trusted, stayed, or given too much, but eyes of gratitude that I used those very things to shape you into someone with depth. Every bend was not a detour. It was a lesson in alignment. Every crack was not a sign of failure. It was a window for light. And every moment you thought you could not go on, I was there, not pushing, not pulling, only keeping you from falling out of my hand. Completion in peace also means you no longer need to defeat memory. Memory is not your enemy. It is a witness. You do not erase it. You place it rightly. When memory is rightly placed, it does not control choices, distort emotions, or pull you backward. It becomes a gentle reminder, showing you what gives you life and what drains you, reminding you which rhythms are mine and which are not. That wisdom does not make you cautious, it makes you free. There comes a very quiet moment when you realize you no longer want to go back to be understood. Not because you are cold, but because you are full, full of being known by me, full of being held in me, full of being led by me. When this fullness takes root, you are no longer driven to correct other people's stories, no longer hurried to reset every marker. You choose the future, and the future chooses you. The two meet in peace. I invite you to move forward with complete trust, not complete because you can see the entire road, but complete because you have seen enough of me. Complete trust does not make you reckless, it makes you calm. You take small but steady steps, listen closely to each gentle invitation, and are willing to stop when I say stop. Complete trust allows you to live fully today without borrowing from tomorrow. And within that rhythm, I have room to do things beyond your calculations. You will recognize this completion through very ordinary signs. Sleep comes more gently. Your inner voice grows softer. Your choices become clearer. You no longer linger in indecision over what does not fit. You no longer persuade yourself to stay where your soul tightens. You no longer trade truth to preserve surface peace. Your no becomes gentle, and your yes becomes whole. These are the signs of a heart that has come home. My beloved child, completion in peace also opens the door to a clean joy, a joy that does not need a grand reason. You rejoice because you are living in the right rhythm. You rejoice because you are no longer running. You rejoice because you are no longer afraid of missing out. This joy is not loud, but it endures. It does not depend on outcomes, yet it supports every outcome. When you keep this clean joy, you are not pulled into intensity, not drawn into comparison, not exhausted by expectations. You do your part, and you allow me to do mine. I also want you to remember that completion does not make you stop, it makes you ready. Ready for new seasons without defensiveness. Ready for relationships that do not require testing. Ready for opportunities that do not need forcing. When you are ready in this way, I will lead you through doors that open naturally, not because you are more deserving than others, but because you are aligned with what I am doing. Alignment is the language of heaven. My child, as you look back on the entire journey, let gratitude rise even for the difficult stretches, not because pain was the goal, but because I did not waste the pain. I used it to separate you from what could not last, to place you into what is true, and to give you a foundation that does not easily collapse. That foundation is communion where you know me, and know that you are known. Nothing can shake that. There may come a day when you tell this story to others. When that day comes, do not tell it to prove that you have overcome it. Tell it to make a way. Speak enough to lift, enough to illuminate, enough to let the listener know they are not alone. And when you are silent, your silence will also speak through a peaceful presence, through precise choices, through a life that does not need display. That is the most enduring testimony. Now, move forward without carrying old burdens, without wearing new titles, carrying only this simple truth: you belong to me. When you belong to me, you are not lost. When you belong to me, you do not lack. When you belong to me, everything you need will arrive at the right time. Live each day fully. Keep the rhythms that have sustained you, and allow me to continue leading in ways that are very gentle. I am with you in your steps, in your rest, in what is newly unfolding. This journey does not end here. It moves into fullness. And that fullness does not make you louder, it makes you steadier. You walk and I walk with you. Thank you for listening to today's message. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so we may continue receiving the living word together, building a firm faith, and walking in the boundless love of God. Amen.